Too smooth that mud talking to have your ass in a wreck. Signing your check, pussy better do what he says. We shutting down shows, ain't gotta put no price in your head. Man, I'm coming for your tongue for all that shit that you said.
Gonna make the heat go boom, 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 boom. What it is, I'm gonna tell you what it is, man. Man, first and foremost, respects to Tito B, rest in peace. You already know what it is. I know I'm using this little song, but it's just in my heart, but I can't stop it. Anyways, Gunner's profiles today, and as you can tell by that thumbnail, oh no, he didn't. Yes, I did, man. I'm gonna give you some of the intricate details, and I'm gonna tell you the story about my man, Big Senior Rojo. It's time to profile an individual that I've become great friends with, an individual that I well respect, was well respected, continues to be well respected, has changed his life, but his life was vicious. And I'm about to let you know from my boca how I seen it, how the story has been told to me. Let's profile Big Senior Rojo, a real one, and in that fashion. Not trip out. Okay, Rojo, being himself, if you know him like I know him, man, have kicked it, slept on the vato's couch, ¿sabes qué? Is very cool people, man. In general, he's laid back, smooth character, doesn't bother no one, but you can tell he's a thinker. He thinks about everything he says before he says it. His awareness is very up to par, you know. Growing up in Detroit, Michigan, okay? So let's get 8 Mile, vato. Growing up in Detroit as a young gentleman, as a youngster, he lived out there in them rough and rumble streets, right? When I say rough streets, I mean rough. Anyone that knows about the East Coast or knows about the Midwest or anything of that nature knows that it's different from Califas. There's a very different stilo, okay? It's not very gang related in Detroit, Michigan, but what it is turf orientated, meaning vatos are running with little cliques, little crews, little clubs, and they're controlling their turf. There's a lot of different licks there. There's a lot of abandoned buildings. There's a lot of places to get lost and lose oneself, right? So growing up as a young kid, going into his teenage years, growing up in Detroit, Michigan, he had a little bit of a thicker skin, a different type of weathering on his skin, right? He was more that flavor, that stilo, that style, and has nothing but love for Detroit, Michigan to this day, you know, a place where he was born and lightweight raised. Now, of course, growing up in that area and that atmosphere, you can come up short. Now, you got to imagine a white guy. So we all know the story of Eminem. Growing up in Detroit, Michigan, that is predominantly Africanos, you would get it bad. You would get oppressed, persecuted, picked on, things of that nature. But see, Rojo already had a tough exterior. You know, growing up there, being a product and a native of that environment, you had to have tough skin. You had to be about your business. And this individual was all that, right? So growing up, something happens with his familia. I don't know the exact details, but I know that they decide to ship him to Houston, Texas, where he now resides, and we're going to get to that. But he starts in his teenage years, later on in his years, gets accustomed to that twang, man, to that flavor, to that Houston stilo, right? Now, the makeup of Houston is kind of just like California. There's a lot of gangs. There's a heavy gang influence from Califas that has moved into the state of Texas. And Texas also has a lot of homegrown gangs like Texas Syndicate, Tango Blast, so on and so forth. There's so many different clicas, so many different gangs, because there's a lot of Chicanos there, or what you would call Tejanos. The Latino influence is heavy, being that close to the border of Mexico, right? You got a lot of Mexicanos there. So growing up again as a white man in Texas, now you know the makeup of Texas, everything is bigger in Texas, right? There's a little bit of everything in Texas. You got the Africano community. Of course, you got the Gavas that are doing their thing, established chow wang shit, right? And then, of course, the Raza. The Raza is pushing forward. And the Raza is actually the majority of Texas. Now, all southwestern states, the wind was blowing. We got it sewed up. That's just the way it's going to be, indubitably menudo style and a direct fashion. But he starts to become accustomed. He starts to hang out with a group called the Latin Kings. Okay, for those of you that don't know, the Latin Kings were established in Chicago. That's where they were born and bred from. And from there, they spilled out to the streets of New York. Okay, and the Latin Kings is probably one of the top 3 biggest organizations or gangs in the world. Not just the United States, but the world. There's a lot of Latin Kings on Monterrey. They shine bright. They shine bright, man. You already know what it is. The King Nation is very big, the Almighty King Nation. And I've spoken on that on my channel, Gunners Collective. But Rojo starts to kick back with these individuals. He likes the structure. He likes the makeup. He likes the way they carry themselves. You got to understand, coming from Detroit, Michigan, it's a culture shock. The way these guys are getting down, because they're a little bit more organized than just these ragtag gangs and cliques that were, doing what they were doing out there, hitting licks out there in Detroit. So he starts to kick back. And of course, you're a product of your environment. The vato would have moved to a predominantly Africano neighborhood. I'm sure Sasuke, he'd have been dipping on fofos, right? But he actually moves into a Latino neighborhood and pretty much grew up his whole life around Latinos from this point on. So you're a product of your environment, like I said. You are who you grow up with. You kick back who you identify with. And so growing up in this Latino neighborhood, man, he starts to kick back with the Latin Kings. Now, somewhere along the line, his familia sees that he's getting into the mix. He's getting into trouble. He's going in and out of juvenile reform. He actually goes to the juvenile justice system. And from his words to me, man, it was on and cracking. He said it was probably more on in the Texas Juvenile Department of Corrections than it was even in prison. And you got to understand, this man has been from Pelican Bay on back, right? So from there, his familia decides, if not for no other reason than to get him up out of there so he doesn't get caught up in the mix, he gets shipped to the Bay Area, the Eastbay area, to be in fact, Pittsburgh, Concord area. Okay, now this is where Rojo becomes Big Rojo. Okay, so getting out there, you got to understand, he's already been influenced by the Latinos. So he's already down with that. Don't. Only a white guy doing it with a Mongolian. Don't. Okay, Big Rojo's already down for the cause. So he starts to identify with the northern faction, which is, of course, the predominant group in the East Bay at this time. Now there's a little bit of everything. But at this time, we're talking about the Norteños. He starts to kick in amongst the Norteños because he has friends that bang Norte. He has friends that are with the cause. He has friends that are with that action, with the activities. So he starts to hang around with them. One, because that's what's in the area. That's where he's growing up. Those are the first vatos he gravitated towards. And second, because coming from the Latin Kings and kicking it with them over there, not saying he was part of the Latin Kings. He had his opportunities, though. Yes, he told me. He had his chances. Never really got clicked up like that. Just kind of was a hang around and kick back with them, and made moves with them. He was embraced. Of course, when you're an associate, you're embraced. It's like damn near. It's like a food stamp to a fucking dollar. It's damn near, right? So anyways, he was kicking it and kicking back with the Norteños. He starts to get established in the Pitas neighborhood, in a predominant neighborhood that's all made up of Norteños. And the homeboys embrace him. They accept him. See, anyone knows, man, it's anybody worthy of the cause. It doesn't matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're green, if you're yellow. We don't do amarillo. But it doesn't matter what color you are. If you're down for your shit, if you represent to the fullest, if you're a man and you're about your word and you hold it down, 10 toes down to the ground, man, in the concrete where the roses bloom, like Tupac said, then you'll be embraced. Okay, so the embracement was real for Big Rojo, and he liked the structure of the Norteños. Now, for those of you that don't know, the Northern cause is pretty similar in a lot of ways to the Latin Kings, meaning there's a structure, they're very militant, very clandestine in some things they do, and they set up shop wherever they go and they hold their own. Being Norteños, of course, being the minority gang in California, they have to be a little bit harder than others. Not to say they are harder than others. I'm just saying that's the mindset. You have to be on your shit. Okay? You can't be no sucker fish at all. Plain and simple, period. That's a fact. And Rojo identified with that, and he liked it because his mindset was, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to be a gangster, if I'm going to be in this life, then I'm going to do it righteously and as real as I can possibly do it. Right? And for that, I give him the ultimate respect as a gang member. Okay? But as a person, he gets even more respect because of the man he has become and how he carries himself. So, growing up basically in those Pittsburgh streets out there in the East Bay, anyone that knows, man, the East Bay wiggles differently. Okay, I've been locked up and incarcerated with Norteños all throughout the state of California. Sasuke, Sureños, and Perros, oh my. I've been locked up with vatos from all the way from Florencia and Evergreens and White Fence, Pomona 12th Street Sharks, the Inland Empire, Black Angels. I've been locked up with vatos from fucking Fresno Bulldogs, Pinedale, Huron, Sasuke, Corco. I've been locked up with vatos from Tula County all the way up to the 530. I've been locked up with vatos from everywhere, okay? And what I can say about the Bay Area is they were always just a little bit different. Okay, the East Bay had that flavor. Maybe it's growing up in that area with a lot of Africanos. There's a cold twist on the way that they speak. There's a cold twist on their hustle. They're grimy with their hustle, but at the same time, they're about that action, okay? So I've always respected the East Bay area. No doubt about it, man. That whole get down, all the way from Oakland on back. A lot of respect comes from the gun. Best believe that. Orderly Oakland, right? Pitas, Concord, Richmond, Hayward, all that area. It's always been love. from Contra Costa County on back. After you're going to get that love. Okay, and I consider that the Eastbay. That's just what I say. You know what I mean? So I could be wrong. Check me in the comments. Anyways, Rojo growing up there, he starts to identify with the Norteños and starts to hang out with some and becomes good friends. Now, of course, he gets caught up along the way. And there is no ifs, ands, or buts. This individual is already of the age of 18. He's going to county jail. So, of course, he gets moved around several county jails. And, you know, you would think it would be hard. You know, you look at Rojo on the thumbnail, you see him, and he looks like Hulk Hogan, vato, or Brock Lesnar, vato, right? But when you start talking to him and you hear his mentality, the way he talks, who he identifies with, who he's always kicked it with, you can tell, man, what this man was all about at one point in time and what he continues to be, you know, respects. So, of course, going into these county jails, you're going to get approached by the opposition by the Woods, just based on his looks and how big he is. He's a big soldado. About to see him, they're like, hey, ¿sabes qué? Hey, come over here, brother. You would, right? He's like, fuck no. They're like, part of the game's that, right? So he gets, of course, approached by the Woods, and they're not too happy, and they're more so unhappy, not because he's a Norteño, but because they lost a true soldado. They lost a big boy, a big old white boy, man, and they just can't wrap their head around that, how that could happen. But it happens, okay? It happens. Like I said, it doesn't matter what you look like. It just matters how you carry yourself and fucking where you're from and the neighborhood you grew up in and the respect that you have garnered along the way, you know? And that's what really, truly matters in the game, whether it be in prison or not. Anyway, so going through county jails, of course he has it rough. He has to knock a few fools out. He has to put some motherfucking paws on some fools. But eventually, they get to know who he is. He becomes known in that system, in the county jail system. He's been through Santa Rita, Martinez, all these different county jails. And so he starts to become known. Okay, so now he finds himself in Quilmas. Okay, he's still a young man. He's probably in his 20s when he finds himself sitting on the 6 yard in San Quentin, which is, for anyone that knows, the notorious 6 yard, which being the oil. Very well structured at this time. We're talking about the 90s. We're talking about 95, 96, 97. We're talking about motherfuckers out there like soldados. Marching to the tune of the beat of the Northern Cause, right? It was just a notorious place. I would hear about it. I never got a chance to go to Quilmas, San Quentin, so I never did the Miclo in the cell like that. I was always in Tracy. That was our Valle reception, the Valley reception. And it's just as notorious. But San Quentin being very big, Bay Area going there, stand up. I could understand for a young white man that's claiming a Latino, basically Latino organization, it could be a little dangerous and so you get out a little bit of butterflies. But knowing Big Rojo, he's never going to show that. He doesn't show fear. I've looked into that man's eyes. Fear is not something that I see. You know, what I see is a lot of pain, a lot of sorrow, a lot of regret, and a lot of fucking drive. You know, a lot of, damn, I should have did this when I did that. Man, I wish I could have went here when I went there. But at the same time, but hey, I ain't done yet, bro. I ain't never going to be done, right? And that's what I see. Now, that's just my perspective on it. My convict's perspective. All right, we're going to get to all that. But anyway, so I'll come with a little bit of energy. Rojo is sitting on that 6 yard, right? And, you know, of course, he hit the main line, or he hit the reception. And from reception, he gets caught up. He's rocking a Mongolian at this time. He's Northern to the fullest. You know what I mean? He's XIV to eternity and all that. And he gets put on this 6 yard with some heavy hitters. Oh, he gets put on the 6 yard with some heavy hitters, and now he's finding out what being a Norteño, a striving soldado, truly is. Okay, what the cause truly means. He started to become educated and indoctrinated into the plight of a true Norteño soldado, right? A real one in real life with a Bay Area twist, because you got to understand, up there in the Bay, you got several vatos from Quilmas, from Salas, Sanjo, everywhere, Gilas, old school fucking established fucking neighborhoods and barrios and cities and towns. And of course, then you got that flavor. You got the Frisco Mission District. You got Oaklon. Dirty 30s, vatos doing that shit in a real way. And then, of course, you got all the surrounding areas, all the way from EPA, Antioch, all the way back to Vallejo, fucking whatever you got. You got Pittsburgh, Concord, Fairfield. No, you don't got no motherfucking Walnut Creek. Sorry, it's Spencer. We're not going to move in that type of excellence. But anyways, you got what you got, right? And so what happens is Rojo gets embraced, just like any other fellow Norteño would. And he hits a yard. You know, he hits a yard within the system. I think the first time he goes to like a 2 yard, you know, he has low points. He's still young, and he wiggles through that. And he ends up getting out, man, and getting caught up again. And of course, he's right back to Quilmas. Now he's already laced. He's no longer a fish out of water. He's no longer new to the game. It's not his first term. This ain't his first rodeo, ¿sabes qué? He's not Tanto Northern Lode Ranger, ¿sabes qué? He's someone else, something totally different. His mind is different now. The hustle is stronger. The game is realer, and he already knows what to do in a certain situation. So Rojo gets locked back up on that 6 yard in the oil because he actually makes a couple moves out there, and he gets identified and validated as an hermano. Okay, now at this time, he wasn't even really into that, but he gets validated as that, right? So, of course, going into the 6 yard, he's already validated as a Nuestra Raza member. They feel that he meets the criteria, meaning that he's worthy of that cause. So he starts to get educated, gets his bundles, gets his indoctrination. And we're not going to go too much into that because I'm not going to tell you what exactly entails into that because it's not our business. But let's just say he gets pulled as a Norteño Soldado. He gets pulled as an NR member. Okay, and a lot of this is new to Rojo, and I've talked to him, I've heard his story out of his own mouth to me, just kicking back, drinking a little motherfucking Kraken, right? Keeping it cracking. And he's told me that he got pulled, and he was all for it because he was dedicated to the Norte. But sometimes you get in over your head. Shit's happening so fast. You're chilling with the homeboys. You're a product of your environment. Whatever's going on is going on, and a lot of shit is going on. You don't see everything that's going on, but believe me, it's wiggling. There's a lot in a menudo style happening when you're on these certain yards, especially in the oils, you know? But he's feeling it. He's feeling it. He's a youngster. He's finally embraced. He's finally settled down to something where he's there now. Okay, he's committed. He's a very committed person. Even to this day, when he does something, he does it to the fullest, and for that, he gets the ultimate respects from me and from you. It should be, right? So of course he gets placed. He catches this validation, and of course, for anyone that knows, once you get validated, you're going to the shoot. There's no ifs, ands, buts, no questions. This is when they were doing indeterminates. You're getting validated. You're going to the oil. You're going to the shoe. You will not see no main lines anymore. So Rojo gets moved from the oil to the shoe, and he goes to Pelican Bay. The Bay, yo. From the Bay to the Bay. You know what I mean? We keeping it cracking. He goes to the Bay, and of course, he gets put in a pod in the Bay where there's several major influences there, okay? Of an NF fashion. I don't really like to say the NF anymore, so I can try to keep my business and they're separated. But let's just say that he runs into one's Tibbs Morado, right? Legendary Tibbs, rest in peace, respects to that individual, the utmost respects. And along the line, this Vato Tibbs takes a liking to Rojo and a couple other individuals that pulled up with them and starts to indoctrinate them and educate these youngsters into the plight of being a Familiano. Okay, and this is a fact. This is a fact. Okay, you would think, there's not a lot of gabachos, there's not a lot of white guys, and you gotta understand. Let me fuck up this misperception right now about Rojo. Rojo's actually half Cubano, right? He's half Cuban, half white. You're just saying that, Gun. Yeah, I am just saying that. It's the truth, right? He's half Cubano. I've seen the paperwork, right? The black and white. He's half Cubano, half white. So he starts to get pulled, and that's neither here nor there. It doesn't matter. I've seen vatos that are straight from fucking Oklahoma. You know what I mean? Come out there with 1 tooth, but the meth his whole life so they could get pulled. Not into the NF though. You know what I mean? I can't call it like an alcoholic. He might be a northern or the lightweight until he gets removed. Anyway, so Rojo gets pulled. He actually gets pulled, man. He does everything that he needs to do to fulfill his obligations and to prove that he is in righteous standings to become a Familiano. And yes, one of not very many white guys of white ethnicity that has actually become a Familiano and is held to that high esteem and revered as a real one. Okay, now it takes a different level, an elite level of a vato to achieve that. Okay, so I could sit here and you could sit here. I've never achieved that status. So I could sit here and talk about it, Holmes, but I can't really tell you because I was never about that particular group segment, that particular organization, the O. He was. Okay, he's a real one. Just like Boxer from Paradigm Media News that achieved that elite status. These individuals achieved that and they deserve their ultimate respect. Now, what went on after that and what happened with careers is neither here nor there. What matters is you could sit there and you could talk all the cagada you want, the mierda, but at the end of the day, you were never at that table, Holmes. You were never even approached or will ever be approached to achieve that status. Only righteous ones. Now, I think the reasoning behind that goes that Rojo, it goes right place, right time. Tibbs took a liking to him and the mind. Rojo's one of the smartest men that I've ever met. One of the smartest individuals. This vato's cold, smooth, and calculated, but at the same time, he's a very giving and cool person. You know, if you actually had the time to sit down and talk to him, that's good. You would understand what I understand. That's the reason why me and him hit it off so good, and we're good camaradas. We're good homeboys. You know what I mean? We're like the yin and the yang. Like, I'm wild, I'm crazy, and he's like this. You know what I mean? So I was getting like a stoic fucking Indio, where I'm like, the yin, the yang, smile now, cry later. Orale, we're doing our thing. And I respect that. But anyway, so he gets pulled into the organization, and he goes out and he actually becomes a regiment commander for the whole Eastbay area. He's running the Eastbay. He gets back out. He's doing everything he has to do. Somewhere along the line, man, in his career of everything he was doing out there. And anyone that knows, I mean, he's in Boxer for Paradigm Media's book. They mentioned Rojo. He's a well-known figure out there. His name was ringing bells. He was doing what exactly he says he did. And which is basically for the organization, maintain. He was maintaining. He was doing everything that was asked of him. Okay, somewhere along the line, the story goes, he finds out that he's being told on. People are implementing him and things. And like any other man would do, he takes a step back. Okay, but you cannot take a step back from an organization like this. You were to be accounted for at all times. And of course, so people start feeling some type of way. And along the way, man, it gets said, or it gets put in the process that Rojo is no longer in good standings based on that he disappeared on people. But Devonta never disappears. He was there the whole time. He was just not trying to get the big homies caught up. That's the facts. That's the truth of the matter. Okay? But that's neither here nor there. It's what everything that he has done and accomplished in his life besides that. So, okay, the gang shit, we'll get the gang shit out of the way. Now it's time for a man to be a man. Okay? It's time for a man to be a man. And he already knows that career is over. He's went through that life. He's lived it to the fullest. He's achieved what a lot of people couldn't. There's nothing more he could possibly do besides sit in a cell all day and do burpees, right? For which I know Rojo doesn't like at all, right? He doesn't even like to spell that word. If you say B in his house, he's like, what? Right? I just meant bullshit. I wasn't. Anyways, so Trip Out, he starts to get involved in construction. He starts to become a man. He starts to, take care of his children, have a family, do his thing. And, he decides that if for no other reason, an opportunity comes up where he could get a home, and he moves back to Houston, where he's surrounded by familia, he's surrounded by righteous ones, he's surrounded by familiar faces, and that's where his life has progressed. Now, obviously, he gets in contact with Flaco. They decide to do their channel, A Convict's Perspective, and then I end up getting in the fold, so and we become fast and good friends. And I can tell you right now, from me to all the people out there watching it, Big Rojo is a real one, not only a real gangster, not only a real thinker, but a real man, and for that, he has my ultimate respect, and he'll be my friend to the day I fucking die. I said, I'll die for that vato, because I'm real, and I know he is too. And that's just the way it goes. Anyways, if you want to know more of his story, go to A Convict's Perspective or the Rojo Room, where he speaks on it a little bit more himself. I just wanted to touch on a lightweight profile of the homeboy, so that way real ones do real things real big, man, and the shit doesn't stop. We've just started. With that being said, man, I hope that you go out there, you move fast with a purpose, you get everything that you want coming to you. Remember, at the end of this fucking day right here, it's only about you, man, and what you do to make it happen for your people. No one else could do it for you. You know what I mean? With that being said, please hit that like and subscribe. Thumbs up if you like these profiles. If not, you can hit that thumbs down. Heavy as the head that wears the crown. I'm still going to do them anyways. Anyways, bang, bang. The gun, we got a lot coming, man. Special announcement coming soon. Let's get fucking Gunners Collective rocking and rolling even more than it already does. And let's get Gunners Profiles even rocking more. Bang, bang. The gun. Orale Rojo. I'm going to call him right now. Fuck it. It's the homie.